so let's go over some examples. So, for example, cobalt-3 fluoride here. What the 3 means is that cobalt, and you gotta look up on the periodic table, cobalt symbol is CO, but I can't figure out the charge from looking at the periodic table. I have to get it right here. The 3 means that the charge of cobalt is 3 plus. I know it's plus because it's the cation. The cation is the only thing that will have a Roman numeral. So it's always going to be a positive charge when you see a Roman numeral. Now, what do I do with fluorine? Well, fluorine is just like usual. I can look up fluorine on the periodic table, and it's 1 minus, just like usual. Now, remember what we wrote in the bold above is that the is that the charges, or sorry, the Roman numeral stands for the charges and not the subscript. So you still have to make sure to cross, so that you get you should have cobalt, CO, one of those, and 3 Fs. So it's not just because it's cobalt 3 doesn't mean it's CO3F. You still have to cross. It's COF3. This is correct right here. Alright, I want to give you a minute to try F. Well, we'll say 2 minutes. So if the sub could pause the video, set the timer for 2 minutes. And what you should have here is, again, this is iron 2. So the charge of iron 2 is plus 2. And chlorine, minus 1. If I look at the periodic table, when those two flip spots, I'm left with FeCl2. Okay, the trickiest part of type 2 compounds is when you're given the formula and have to go to the name. And the reason why it's tricky is because the only way to do this, you can't really do the cross. You have to do this with the drawing or with the puzzle pieces. So here's what we're going to do. First thing that I like to start with is if I've got PbF2, what that means is that I've got 1 Pb and 2 F. So I'm going to draw that first. And then which of these do we know the charge of? The only one that we know the charge of is F, because if I look on the periodic table, it's minus 1. If I tried to look up lead on the periodic table, I'd find that lead is a transition element. And since it's a transition element, we don't know its charge. But now we can figure out the charge because the charge of the anions comes out to be, what's the charge over here? The charge of these is going to be negative 2, which means I only have one of these. What does the charge of that one have to be? It has to be plus 2. So the charge of this is plus 2. So when I write my my equation, my name, this is lead fluoride like usual, but it's not just lead fluoride because since this is type 2, I have to put the thing in parentheses. So this is lead, and since it has a charge of 2, I'm going to say lead, Roman numeral 2, fluoride. Okay. Let's try it with chromium oxide. So we have 1 chromium, we've got 1 oxygen. What's the charge of oxygen? If I look on the periodic table, it's minus 2. So then that means, what's the charge of chromium it have to be? It has to be plus 2, which means here I have chromium 2 oxide. Alright. Now, you may or may not feel comfortable with what we just did, but we're going to get some more practice. What I need you absolutely to know right now, or what I just want to review with you right now, is the following. When is an element type 1? So this is what I want you to do, is I want you to turn to your partner, and I want you to ask your partner, I want you to look deep into your partner's eyes, and I want you to ask your partner, dear partner, how do you know whether a compound is type 1 or type 2? And I want you to listen to your partner's answer. You have 1 minute to do this. The sub does not need to pause it. I'm just going to wait a minute here. You have 1 minute to ask your partner what, how do you know whether a compound is type 1 or type 2? While they're doing that, I would like to ask the sub to pass out the 108, 109 packet. Okay, go ahead and take a second to quiet down. It's been your minute. Okay. You should have shared with your partner. And again, how do you know if it's type 1 or type 2? Well, type 1 compounds are in groups 1, 2, or 13. I'm actually, if you'll permit me, go back to the drawing here. So if they're in groups 1, 2, or 13, those are type 1, the cation, the first one. If they're 1, 2, or 13, that's type 1, and I don't need a Roman numeral. If they're in the transition elements, and I'm seeing that my animation is a little bit off because these are also transition elements. But if they're in the transition elements, the cation is in the transition elements. That's type 2, and I have to have a Roman numeral. Okay. Now, using that information, let's get back to where we're at. You now should have the 108, 109 packet that's called Mixed Binary Practice. And we're going to do one together, and then you're going to try one. Alright. So the first question is lithium bromide. Now, here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to talk this time. I just want you to think in your head. Type 1 or type 2. Just think about it in your head. Okay. And I'm going to say lithium bromide is type 1. Now, how did I know it was type 1? I know it's type 1 because the cation, again, the cation's always listed first, but the cation, in this case lithium, if I were to look on the periodic table, lithium's about right here, okay? It's in group 1. Group 1, that's type 1. Now, some of you may have also come up with another way that you could have figured this out. The other way that you could figure this out is that there's no Roman numeral. If I gave you the name and it was type 2, it would have to have a Roman numeral. So there'd be two answers I would accept for how you know it's type 1. Okay? And the last part says to come up with the formula. This is just what we've been doing. Lithium and bromine. What's the charge of lithium? Well, since it's type 1, I look in the periodic table. These are all plus 1s here. So lithium is plus 1. Bromine is minus 1. And I cross. My formula should be Li1 Br1. And again, you can just drop the 1s when they're alone. So there's question 1 for you. Here's what I want you to do. Question 2 is asking about iron 2 chloride. This is what you're going to do. The sub is going to pause the video and set a timer for 1 minute. You're going to talk to your partner for 1 minute about what you think this is. just to be clear, if you're not actually talking to your partner about what you're supposed to be right now, it's to your own detriment, right? You're not gonna know what's going on, and again, I'm not gonna. We're gonna have time to talk about this when I get back, but I am counting on you to take today seriously. So I'm counting on you when I say to try this with your partner, to try it with your partner. All right, let me tell you what I said about iron 2 chloride. I'm going to say that that's a type 2. There are two reasons that I know it's a type 2. The first reason is if I look up iron on the periodic table, iron's about right there. That's right smack dab in the middle of transition metals. Also, there was a Roman numeral. So if I didn't know that iron was a transition metal, I would at least see that it's a Roman numeral. So I'd say that that's type 2. Now, when it comes to the formula, this is iron 2 chloride. So iron 2, what's the charge of iron 2? Well, it's 2. That's why we call it iron 2. Chlorine, look at the periodic table. Chlorine's about, what is it? It's about right here, I think. Chlorine's up here in the -1 area. When I cross, FeCl2. You try 3. Again, I would like the sub to pause the video for 1 minute. Whoops. I'd like the sub to pause the video for 1 minute. And I would like you to talk to your partner about question number 3. Alright. You may have seen me mess up here a second ago. But this is type 2. Now, how do I know it's type 2? There's no Roman numeral, so how do I know it? Well, I have to look up on the periodic table. I have to find titanium. Titanium is right here in the transition metal region. So this is type 2. What does that mean when I have type 2? That means I have to have a Roman numeral when I name it. Again, the only way to go about this here is to draw it. So I've got, let's see, how many titaniums do we have here? I think I got 1 titanium, and I have 3 bromines. So I'm going to say, I'm going to just draw it. I got 1 titanium, and I have 1, 2, 3 bromines. Each bromine is right here on the periodic table. So bromine has a charge of -1. If I've got 3 of these bromines, all of them together have a charge of -3. What does that mean titanium has to have? It has to have a charge of +3. That means that my name has to be titanium, what? Titanium 3 bromide. By the way, here's a question for you. Someone once asked me, you got any sodium hydrobromate? You know what I said? I said, nah, bro. Sodium, bromine, oxygen. Alright. Jokes aren't nearly as much fun when I don't have an audience in front of me. Alright. Talk to your partner about number 4. Again, I'm going to have the sub pause the video for a minute. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to have the sub do that. I'm going to have the sub. I'm running out of time again. So go ahead and stop the video and set a timer for 1 minute and then begin again on the next video.